Hi, I'm Gena. Today, I'm going to be walking you through the Deep Dive Data Protection Tools in Foundry course on learn.palantir.com. If you're looking to get more familiar with Foundry's suite of data protection tools, this is a great place to start. Before we begin, a quick word from our founder.
Discover how Palantir customers unlock more value from Foundry and AIP thanks to our live instructor-led trainings. We are Ontologize, a group of former Palantir engineers who love teaching. We've trained thousands of Palantir users at leading organizations around the world. Unlock the full potential of your Palantir deployment by going to ontologize.com.
Starting from learn.palantir.com, you're going to navigate to Courses, and you're going to navigate to Deep Dive Data Protection Tools in Foundry. Click on the course, and of course, make sure you're signed in and registered for the course. Let's start with the course introduction. This course covers data protection tools, which is an important part of data governance used in combination with security tools. In this course, we're going to be looking at tools such as checkpoints, sensitive data scanner, and Cipher. Note that for this course, you may need some permissions that you don't have yet. You'll need to have access to the Data Governance Officer role in Foundry, so you're going to have to contact your administrator to be added to that group if you're not already. You're also going to need access to the following platform components: checkpoints, Cipher, and sensitive data scanner. We also have some links to the documentation and an address to provide feedback. Next up, we have some information about the use case. We're going to begin by setting up purpose justifications using checkpoints to make sure that we can track if data is being downloaded by users. Next up, we're going to be looking at the sensitive data scanner, which allows us to detect if there's sensitive data being contained in a project that shouldn't be there necessarily. Lastly, we're going to be looking at Cipher, which is Palantir's obfuscation tool. These tools can be used in combination with Palantir's other security primitives, such as markings, to ensure data minimization and make sure that nobody is accessing data that they shouldn't. Let's move on to setting up the project and the folder. As always, all of the resources that you're going to create need to live inside a project. If you already have a project for your Palantir Learning work, you won't need to make a new one. But if you don't have one yet, you should make a new project. If you already have a project, you're not going to need to go through these steps. But if you do not have a project, you will have to go through these steps to create a Foundry Learning project. Now, regardless of if you had to make a new project, you're going to need to make a course-specific training folder. So from here, you should navigate to your project, and we're going to make a new folder. So now that I'm in the platform, I'm going to hit Control-J and navigate to my learning folder. And so I'm going to click into my folder, and I'm going to make a new folder, and I'm going to call this one Deep Dive Data Protection Tools in Foundry. So I'm going to click into this one. And now that we've created a course-specific folder, we're going to need to upload data. In this course, we're going to be using notional employee data. And so, of course, this is a data asset that an organization would have an interest in protecting. So we're going to hit Next. And now at the very bottom of this page, you'll see that we have the employee data that we can download. And now that we've downloaded the data, we're going to go upload it to our folders. If you don't have the ability to upload data to your specific stack, so navigate to your folder, and then you're going to hit New, Upload Files, choose from Computer, and now you're going to grab this downloaded data set and hit Upload as a structured data set. And so now you've successfully uploaded your data. So now we can move on to the next step. We're going to begin with establishing justification prompts. To do this, we're going to use Foundry's Checkpoints tool. A checkpoint is a prompt that asks users to justify sensitive actions they take in Foundry, such as exporting data or something similar. So here is an example of how a checkpoint looks. In this case, we have a checkpoint for a data export. And so here, the user is forced to agree that the exported data conforms to some sort of policy, and then they have to submit that acknowledgement. So now we can move on, and we're going to go through the steps of configuring a checkpoint. So now back in Foundry from wherever you are, you're going to hit Control-J and search for checkpoints. Now, if you're not seeing this app when you search for it, you might not have access for it, and you're going to need to request access from an administrator. So you're going to click on Checkpoints. So here we are in the Checkpoints app. So you'll notice that there's a Review tab and a Configuration tab. So first, we're going to have to navigate to the Configuration tab because we don't have any checkpoints right now. So you're going to click on Configuration. And now you're going to click Configure New Checkpoint. So you'll see that there's a number of different checkpoint types that we can configure. So you'll see that the different types of checkpoints that we can establish are segregated both by category and by applications that they touch. So remember, these are all of the different types of actions that users might take that we might want to set up a checkpoint for. And so in this case, we're going to search for Compass Export. So this covers instances where a user wants to download or export a file from Foundry. It's going to include all datasets, all files, and images in the file system. So you're going to click on Compass Export. So now for the scope, you're going to navigate to Namespace and select the specific namespace that you're using for this training. Next up, we can add some more granular control over when a user will see this checkpoint. So here we can hit Add New Condition, and we're going to set up a condition where only our user will actually see this checkpoint. So you're going to hit Choose Condition Type, and it's going to be selected user or group, but notice that the conditions can also have to do with location or marking. So here we're going to select selected user or group, and the user is going to be my user. So I'm going to hit U, that one's me. In here, you're also going to be notified if this checkpoint conflicts with any other sort of existing checkpoint configurations. And so now you're going to hit Next. And we're going to give it a title. So based on the course, we're going to title this with our username. So I'm just going to use my first name. Checkpoint Download Test. And so what we're doing here is we're configuring the message that the user is going to see when they get this pop-up. And so for the prompt, we have Markdown supported here. And we're going to write test checkpoint for preventing dataset downloads for the Deep Dive Data Protection Tools course. And now for the description, we're going to write this field is optional and will appear on the checkpoint in lighter text between the checkpoint prompt and justification. And now we're going to hit Next. So here we have 4 different types of justifications. We have an acknowledgement, a dropdown, a response, or a reauthentication. And so in this case, we're going to choose acknowledgement. So you're going to click on acknowledgement. And then we have to enter an acknowledgement message. So this is what the user is agreeing to when they click this button. So we can say, I acknowledge that the action I am about to undertake carries some risks of data leaks as I download data from the platform onto my local drive. And then we're going to hit Next. So for the frequency setting, we're actually not going to change anything here because the frequency is only relevant for any sort of checkpoint configuration that targets the login checkpoint type. And so now we're going to hit Next. And now here, we're going to enter some metadata. So this is not going to appear in the checkpoint, but is going to be visible in the end user configuration. And so we're going to be calling this one Gena test. And now we're going to say create checkpoint configuration. And so now we've created our checkpoint. And so we can see that this is now showing up. And now the next step is we're going to test it out. So let's make sure this works. So from here, we're going to go back to the data that we uploaded. And so to navigate back to that, we can hit Control-J and search for employee data. So it's going to be this one right here. So now that I've opened up this data set, I'm going to try to download it. So I'm going to go to All Actions, and I'm going to say Download as a CSV. And here you'll see that I have to do my acknowledgement. So I'll click it, Submit, and then I can download. So clearly, the checkpoint works as intended. Now let's go back and actually see what got collected. So if I navigate back to the Checkpoints app, so I'm going to hit Control-J and search for checkpoint, you'll see here that I have a log item detailing what I as the user just did. Now let's review something about the configuration. So you'll see that this checkpoint applies whenever the user is me. But again, you could make this more granular and could say something like, show this checkpoint whenever the user is Gena and the location is a specific project. And so you can get a lot more complicated here, but broadly, this is going to show up all the time for my user whenever I'm trying to take that specific action, which is the Compass export. So now that we've created our checkpoint and tested it out, let's move on to sensitive data scanning. In this section, we're going to set up a sensitive data scan, which is going to flag to us if there's any sort of sensitive information in this project based on some criteria that we use to define sensitive information. In this case, we're setting up a scan only for one data set. But of course, when you're in a real-life organization with real-world complexity, you may have many more data assets, and you can't simply inspect the data sets by hand at that point to see if there's any sort of sensitive information. And that is the real case motivation for using the sensitive data scanner. So first up, we're going to locate the sensitive data scanner application. Again, if you can't find it, you might not have access to it, and you're going to need to ask an administrator for access. So from wherever you are in Foundry, you're going to hit Control-J, and you're going to search for Sensitive Data Scanner. And so you're going to click on this one. And now we're going to select the namespace. In our case, it is Ontologize public. And now from here, we're going to hit Create New Scan. And we're going to follow the steps to create our sensitive data scan. So we're going to hit Continue. And now we have to select which resource we want to scan. And so we're going to hit Add Resource. So I'm going to go into my learning project. And so we're going to select the Deep Dive Data Protection Tools in Foundry, and then hit Select. And so here we have specified which folder we're scanning. And here you could also say, I want to exclude certain data sets or folders within a folder, but we're not going to do that. By default, it's going to scan everything, but you can segregate which resources get scanned based on the marking. Next up, you can have a scan compute estimate. So of course, it's going to take some compute to scan the data. In this case, it's not terribly interesting because we only have one data set. But as you can imagine, if you're dealing with hundreds, if not thousands of data sets, you probably want to know that. So here, for the transaction types, you can choose to only scan certain types of data sets, or you can opt to scan all data sets. So in this case, we're going to keep all of these things selected, but in reality, you might want to only scan certain types of data sets. Next up, you have choices here. You can either scan all of the rows or only scan a random subset of rows. The recommended strategy is to just scan all the rows. Now, next up, for the scan schedule, we're only doing a one-time scan here, but you can do a recurring scan. And this will scan the relevant data sets when they're created and every time they're updated. And now we're going to hit Continue. And now we have to define what sensitive data is. What does it look like? What are we actually looking for here? And so here, we're going to click into where it says Select Match Conditions, and then hit Create New Match Condition. But notice here that there is a couple of ones that come out of the box. So for example, we can scan for an email address, or a VIN, or a social security number, IP address, phone number. So for certain types of personally identifiable information, the match conditions already exist. In this case, we're going to be creating a new match condition. And this one is going to be the marital status. So marital status itself is not necessarily a sensitive piece of data, but when combined with other pieces of information, it could cause the data to become identifiable. So here, the internal name is marital status. The namespace, it's inheriting the namespace that we already selected. So now the condition type is going to be a regular expression, but you can also have a value overlap, which will match against existing sensitive values. So we're going to hit Next. Now we can generate the regex with AI, or we can just copy it from the course. So there we go. So it can look for content or something in the column name. Now we can set a content threshold, but that is optional. And now we're going to hit Next. So the public name is still going to be marital status. And the description, we're going to say scan for marital status values in the dataset. And now we're going to hit Create Match Condition. So here we have our custom match condition, and now that's showing up. And so we're going to hit Continue. Now you have a choice. Do you want to perform match actions, or do you not want to perform match actions? So in this option, the scan can actually perform an action if there is a match to sensitive data found. And so in this case, if marital status data was detected, we could, for example, create an issue or apply a marking. Now, what we're going to go with is actually do not apply match actions, but just keep in mind that performing match actions would probably be something that you would want to do in the real world. So we're going to click no match actions and then hit continue. And now we're going to review our configuration. And now we're going to hit run one-time scan. Now note that if this is failing for you, you might have to be a namespace owner. And so here you can see that my scan is now running. So if I hit scan in progress, I can see what data assets it is scanning. And now that the scan is completed, we can see that there is indeed a match found, which means that there is sensitive data as we define it, found in this data set. And so here we can see that marital status was indeed detected in this data. And so of course, in the real world, you would be doing this on many more data sets, but we're just using a single data set for an example now. Now that we've set up our scan and we've tested it out, we're going to move on to how do we encrypt sensitive data. In this section, we're going to be using a tool called Cipher, which allows us to obfuscate sensitive data. The first step here is going to be to set up a Cipher channel. We're going to navigate back to our folders. So data, protection tools, and Foundry. And now from here, you're going to go to new, and you're going to search for Cipher channel. So we're going to make a new Cipher channel. So first, we're going to give our channel a name. So we're going to call this our username, or in this case, my first name, test Cipher. We're going to be saving in our folder, deep dive, data protection tools, and Foundry. And now we can choose the crypto system. And so in this case, we're going to be using deterministic encryption. Now note that some of these are reversible, meaning they can be decrypted by those users that have permissions, and some of them are irreversible, which means the values can never be decrypted. So here, we're going to stick with this one and hit next. Now for the key retrieval method, we're going to hit key derivation, and then hit create Cipher channel. You can think of the Cipher license like a key that allows you to access cryptographic operations that you're defining in a Cipher channel. So here, you're going to create new Cipher license. And here, this is going to be dataset operations, but note that you also have an opportunity to do ontology operations, which means you could encrypt and decrypt properties of objects in the ontology. So we're going to grab dataset operations. We're going to leave this unchecked, and then hit next. Now the operations that this license allows, it's going to be encryption and decryption. And now we're going to hit next. So the name of this license is going to be Gena Cipher license test. Now the save location, it's going to be in the folder for the course. Now for the usage, we're going to say yes, enable owners of this license to move it to other projects. And then hit create Cipher license. And now we've successfully created our Cipher license. Next up, we're going to encrypt the sensitive column in Pipeline Builder. So first, we're going to navigate to our home folder. And we're going to go to new and hit Pipeline Builder. And we're going to be calling this one Gena Cipher Test Pipeline. This is going to be a batch pipeline. And now we're going to hit Create Pipeline. And so now from here, we're going to hit Add Foundry Data. And you're going to be adding in your employee data dataset. So hit that plus sign. And then hit Add Data. And now we're going to be using the Cipher encryption transform in Pipeline Builder to encrypt sensitive columns. So now we're going to be use the Cipher encrypt operation in Pipeline Builder. So starting from your node, you're going to hit transform, and you're going to search for Cipher encrypt. Now the thing that we're encrypting is going to be the employee name. Now for the Cipher license, it allows us to do this. We're going to hit browse, and then grab Gena Cipher license test, or whatever you called yours, and then hit select. So you can see that we're replacing employee name with the encrypted version of it. So now we're going to hit apply. And now we can see what originally went into the transform in the input table. And so now in the output table, under employee name, we now see Cipher values, not the actual employee name. So this means the data is now encrypted. So now that we're done here, make sure you hit apply and then close. So from here, we're going to actually produce an output of this pipeline so we can access data throughout Foundry. So starting from transform path, you're going to hit that gold at output, and we're going to be making a new data set. And we're going to call this one Gena, or your name, encrypted employee data. And now we're going to hit save and deploy. And then deploy. And so now that our deployment has completed, we can go take a look at this data set. So if I right click on it, I can hit open. And so here again, we can see the resulting encrypted column in our pipeline. So now that we have our data, this is totally optional as it's not part of the course, but we can use this data set to back an object type to explore how to actually decrypt the value once it's in the ontology layer. So from here, starting from this data set, I'm going to go to all actions and then see create object type. I'm going to click on that. And so here you'll see it automatically selected use existing data source, and it's backing this object with Gena encrypted employee data as intended. And so we're going to hit next. And then I'm going to hit next. And for the primary key, I'm going to use the employee number. And for the title, I'll also stick with the employee number. And then I'm going to hit next. No need to generate any action types. All of this is just for demonstration purposes to understand how to decrypt these values. And then I'm going to hit create. So here I am in my object configuration. So now in order to make this value decryptable, I'm going to go to properties, navigate to employee name. And now the base type here is a string. But in order for Foundry to be able to recognize this as a Cipher value and then therefore allow me to decrypt it, I'm going to have to change this to being ciphertext. And now I'm going to have to select the Cipher channel associated with this encryption. I'll go to my recent files. It's in my folder here. And here we have my Cipher channel that I just made. Now I'm going to hit select. And now I'm going to hit save. And so now we're going to have to wait while our data syncs to the ontology backend. But after that happens, we can go explore how to decrypt a value. And now we know that our ontology is hydrated because we can see that all of the steps in the pipeline have completed. So now let's go take a look at this in Object Explorer. So from here, you're going to hit Control-J and search for Object Explorer. And we're going to open that in a new tab. So here, you can also search for your object type that you've just created. So I just search for employee. I will see Gena encrypted employee data. You'll notice I also saw it on the Object Explorer homepage. And so here I have my results in Object Explorer. So I'm going to click on one of my results. Now here we are. We can see the object view for a single employee. Now if I click on encrypted value, you'll see that I get an error message. You do not have access to this operation. So in order to make sure that I can do this, I'm going to have to create another license. So let's go back to our Cipher channel and configure a new license so I can take these operations. So now I'm going to hit create new Cipher license. This is going to be ontology operations. And then I'm going to hit next. And so I'm going to allow decryption and then hit next. And this is going to be called decrypt employee name. And then I'm going to create Cipher license. And now that I'm back in Object Explorer, note that you might have to refresh the page to pick up the new license. So now if I click encrypted value, I can actually see the employee name. Now note that in many cases, you're going to want to use a checkpoint in combination with Cipher, because ideally, when a user that is able to decrypts a value, you may want to retain a record of that, and you would do that using a checkpoint. So now we've completed the core exercises associated with this course. Let's do a quick review of what we've done so far. We began by making a checkpoint that forces the user to make an acknowledgement when they're exporting data from the platform. From there, we set up a sensitive data scan. Finally, we set up a Cipher channel. And now note, as part of the actual course, we made one license. And again, this license only allows us to do encrypt, decrypt on data sets, not on the ontology. And as a bonus, we made an additional license that allows us to do decryption on the ontology layer. After we made these licenses, we applied that in Pipeline Builder by encrypting a column. And as a bonus exercise, we created the employee object type in the ontology to show what decrypting a property looks like in the ontology layer. Thanks for watching. We hope you found this helpful. Let us know what you want to see next in the comments.